Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 100th EOcafe. We'd never have thought it 5 years ago, but here we are, and we've got a rather special setup. Been a bit of a challenge to set it up, but we're here with a live audience. It's not the first time we've been in the offices and I've sat next to the guest, but it's the first time that we've had a live audience with a guest, so it's another milestone. And it's been a bit of a challenge to get the setup, but hopefully it will all work. I think the microphones should pick up from people in the room as well as you joining online, so we'll see. But generally the usual rules apply. As a reminder, please keep your microphone off unless I specifically ask you to join in. You can very welcome to keep your cameras on. We like you to keep your cameras on so that we can see you. And if you have a question that you want to put or comment, please just pop it into the chat, and then we'll pick it up and you come in and join us. So the first EOcafe was 5.5 years ago, almost April 2020. It was the early days of COVID, and as I've said many times, you heard me say it before, but the whole idea was, we couldn't meet physically, so we would provide a meeting place where people could stay in touch even if they couldn't travel and meet. And obviously it's proved rather attractive for people. And we've got a good audience today. We get good audiences at the EOcafe, and people, I was just saying just now how traveling, I get people just coming up to me who I don't know saying, well, thank you for the EOcafe, which is something really very new. But we've been over 5 years now. We've had 160 guest speakers. And so to bookend the milestone of the 100th EOcafe, we asked Mauro Facchini from the Commission, who was one of our guests in the first EOcafe. Jean Dussart was another one. John is with us as well in the room. So the idea was have a little bit of a talk about Copernicus and where it's been, what the highlights have been, and where it's going. Just for the record, Mauro was also with us for a second EOcafe, number 40, in April 2022. And there we talked about the evolution of the Copernicus program. So this is the third time as a guest, which I think is the maximum we've had anybody. So there we go. So whilst today we'll look ahead at the next 5 years, we also want to sort of take a look backwards and see what's been happening in the 5 years, what's involved in the program. Mauro, I don't have anything you want to say at the beginning. Normally I ask our guests just to introduce themselves, give their background and where they are, but I think Mauro needs no introduction, but maybe you just want to say a little bit at the beginning.
Thank you very much, Geoff. First of all, for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here, and because we trust a lot the work of EARSC. I think a lot of things that have been happening and that we are doing every day are also possible because there are communities that are working behind in order to feed us with information and with the requirements, with suggestions, criticism, and so on. So I'm Mauro Facchini, and I'm responsible for Earth observation at the European Commission since several years now, and as such also in charge of Copernicus. I'm very happy to be here for this celebration of the 100th EOcafe, probably in a different setting. I imagine that maybe on the first one I had a jacket, but maybe a pyjama, because I was in front of my computer and not in presence. It was indeed, I think we are thinking about the times that was coming here, knowing that was the first time where these were times that we had probably felt other people that will never believe. So if you were not there at that moment, you will never believe. But I think thanks to the initiative like the EOcafe, was a way really to continue practically normal life. So it was the new normal, as we mentioned, but it allowed not to stop, but really to continue, because life had to continue. And I think that you did a great job. And it's amazing that you came to the 101. So it's in 5 years, you had what, 20 a year, 2 per month. So I think it's really incredible, the job that you have done. 5 years, I mean, is quite some time. Several things happen in this period because yes, by the way, it's 100th Earth observation EOcafe, but at the same time in 2023, during this period, we celebrated 25 years of Copernicus. So this was something that was quite important for us. We had 8 Sentinels flying in 2020, and now we are 11 flying. I mean, we would have hoped more than that, but then there were some issues with launchers and so on. But I think now the cadence is increasing, and I take the chance maybe to make some publicity, because on the 4th of November, Sentinel 1B will be launched, and I think it will be live around 10, something like that. We moved also from one MFF to the other. So we have a new regulation in place. It looks strange to speak about the new regulation because we're already working to the next one now. But so a new one that started in 2021, where actually Earth observation or Copernicus is not separated, but it's part of really of an overall space strategy for Europe. And yeah, and so I think that we were able to mobilize the money to continue and also to evolve things that we are doing. Another thing that happened was 2024, and maybe something else interesting for you. UK came back into Copernicus despite the Brexit.
Left and came back in the period.
Yes. But I think it was also it demonstrates the fact that I think there was really a common interest to work together, and we were very happy about this. So Copernicus continued. We beyond the services, traditional services, we have also created the concept of thematic hubs. Looking into specific areas like, I don't know, polar, like water resilience will be the next one, but coastal zones. So there are cultural heritage. So there is a series of thematic hubs that we have created. We try to evolve a little bit the interaction with the users, and thank also to the entrusted entities, the concept of national collaboration programs was created. So in a way, we need to integrate more with the users, mostly at national level. USPA, so the EU Space Agency, increased also its role in this period, being involved in communication, market uptake, so integrating. Probably you had also links with USPA for what is concerning this activity.
Yeah, no negative view, but USPA, I think, was the record number of attendances in the EOcafe when we had USPA had just been formed, and we had them talking about what they were going to be doing, and that was the most attended EOcafe. I'd noted 5 Sentinel launches in this period.
Okay. Yes, I think yes, maybe. But you know that better than me, probably.
Well, maybe, I don't know. 6A in November 2020, 2C in September 2024. You talked about the launch, the sort of the gap, the launch difficulties. 1C in December 24, 4A earlier this year, and 5A earlier this year as well, in July and August, respectively. And yes, it's good to know that 1D will go up very shortly. That
and 6B as well in November. Second half of the year. Yes, of the month. Yes, November.
We also had the contributing missions introduced, which was something which was very important for our sector. It enabled commercial contributions to Copernicus in a different way. I've got to know that there were 19 contributing agreements have been signed with both data suppliers who are actively supplying data and those who are planning to supply data as they get underway. I think this is a very important part. So you talked about the thematic hubs, the emergence of the services. Are there any other highlights for you from Copernicus of the last 5 years?
Maybe coming to the contributing missions,
Mhm.
indeed, I think we have seen evolution. First of all, on the way to go more European. So actually, we created some categories. It's not meaning that we don't like to cooperate with non-European. I think they have also outside of Europe, they are very excellent constellations. So we still integrate non-European capacities, but we try to go more and more European, and we see more and more capacities and companies coming into the picture. So we have created 3 categories. Category 1, that is the new entrants. Category 2, the traditional European ones, and category 3, the non-European. And beyond that, we put in place what we call dynamic purchasing system.
Yeah.
That is a way to make things simpler. So actually companies can really ask to be in the loop, and then it's possible later on to place contracts. And we had very good feedback on this approach. So ESA is placing this contract with us. I have to say that initially implementing that was not extremely easy. But then I think even from the European Space Agency side, they realized that it was a good system, and they are not excluded to apply that in other areas of procurement. So in the end, we are happy that it worked out well.
No, we welcomed it as a new system. It was obviously a bit of a trial, but it seems to be going quite well. And I think from the industry point of view, it's also seen as being a positive step and a way of contributing in ways that couldn't otherwise happen. You mentioned the UK. I was going to ask you what event maybe was the biggest. What would you consider as being the biggest highlight in terms of an event? Probably not the UK coming back, but maybe Parliament or some non-European comments or congratulations, or I don't know what would stand out for you.
I think that there are several things that are happening. I know that every time we get greetings about how our Copernicus is working, I would say mostly outside of Europe. So I think when we have meetings with our colleagues in the US, in Canada, in Australia, I think we get a lot of greeting on what we do, and actually it's a system that is quite unique. But also myself personally, when I look what's happening, when I receive unfortunately, but practically every day notifications of activations for emergency things, I'm saying, okay, this is happening because Copernicus is there. So unfortunately, these things happen, but it's really to see we are there, it's happening. And when you say receiving congratulations, I remember we got a kind of a silver medal from, I don't know, remember, from Spain because of the activation of La Palma. Actually, it was a joint silver medal that was received jointly by GECO, JRC, and DEFIS for all the activations that were done. Just because there was a kind of formal recognition among others. But also every time that we see reports about the climate change, the marine status report, I think that all these documents are cited more and more and are really becoming the records. And I think this is very gratifying. So it's meaning that we are doing something that really has an impact. So for us, it's really recognition that things are working in the right way.
Okay, so I mean the raison d'etre of Copernicus, there are several goals, but it's a service for public decision makers, particularly at European level, but not for member states as well, but for policy makers more generally. How has that impacted policy making, decision making?
Yes. So if I go back to from where we started, so I've been quite long in this job, so I have some historical memory about what happened. So first observation, and Copernicus was something new, and being new was clear for us that were involved in the setting up Copernicus, but was not so clear in the heads of those people. So this is the reason why in the beginning we had several discussions with other DGs, what we say the user DGs, climate, Agri, environment, and so and so. And I think that we saw a lot of skepticism. I think mostly because it was something new. A second, because it was something that would have destabilized in their minds the continuity of what they've done in the past. So, and this was really kind of barrier in the beginning. And as I used to say, I felt like a carpet vendor, so knocking at the doors of the different, it's very beautiful, it's useful for us. And the answer was, okay, thank you very much, we'll let you know, and this sort of thing. Now, actually, the dynamic has totally changed, because we see more and more that there are policies that are integrating Earth observation and Copernicus products as part of the implementation. And actually, some of them, in drafting the new policy, they contact us upfront to better understand what is possible to do in order to put that in the legislation. And I think this is really a game changer, because it's meaning that Earth observation, I'm not speaking about, but Earth observation in general is starting to be really a tool. And one thing that I try also to push for is that even when you have university courses and so on, having Earth observation yes, indeed, is very useful if you do aerospace engineering, but it should be introduced in some other agronomy, or whatever. So actually, because it's a tool that is extremely useful and could really change the way in which you're doing things.
Part of the problem is the such wide range of applications, so they're so manifest. There was one other reason. When I'm going back now to GMES and the very beginnings in around 2000, and all the other DGs were afraid they would be asked to sign a check. And that was one of the main reasons why it was very hard to get even DG Environment to sign up at that time. So progress has been enormous. Yeah. Is there any one particular? I mean, you talk generally about policy making and the recognition that there is a tool there that can be used and which can help in the design of policy in relation to its implementation, its verification, like the different phases of the policy. Is there any one area in particular that you feel has been a success?
There are many, I think, in particular, all the new legislation about water directive, soil directive, and are including this aspect. But I think there is a general one, a common aspect that is cross-cutting all this is the reporting burden reduction.
Okay.
So it's meaning that all these, the polity in general have some reporting that is requested, either to be generated by the service of the Commission or requested by member state and so on. It is considered that Earth observation can help to reduce the burden in generating that, because very simply, having images from a satellite will for sure reduce the work that would be needed by dedicated people going in situ, doing some measurements, looking at this and that and so on. So first, so it can be, I mean, you can have just one picture for that, but it can be faster, but it can be also more intercomparable, because actually the system that is looking in France is the same that will be looking in Germany, that will be looking in Czech Republic and so on. So you can easily compare, and is not dependent on the measurements that are done on site. So in general, we are trying to see and to demonstrate, maybe also to use some to look in some user cases. We're starting with some aspect with DG environment just to demonstrate that can be helpful in this reporting burden reduction. And another aspect is involvement in the CVs. Coming back to what I said before, it was very difficult to let the message of using Earth observation in ECVs, because all these were based on traditional measurements, and introducing Earth observation was already felt as, okay, we destabilize and there will be discontinuity with the measurements of the past. On the contrary, after a while, it was understood that it was an added value and not disturbing solution.
It's taken some time, but yeah. And feeling that there is a momentum growing. I guess you feel that as well.
Absolutely. As I said, I mean, the change is not. I'm not taking the phone to call someone, but usually to reply to some calls that I get. That again, this is for me, and for my team and for everyone that is involved into that, and indeed all your constituency as well. Because so we have to be clear. The Commission had the initiative. So we decided to go that way. We're able to mobilize money and so on. But if Copernicus happened, it's because it was a common challenge, a common endeavor. Indeed, the Commission was there, but then it worked with entrusted entities, ESA, UNEP, CNWF, EA, and so on. I can mention all of them eventually. But in the end, the job has been done by industry. So an industry was there with the capacity. I hope that it was a win-win situation, meaning that Copernicus benefited from the knowledge that was already in Europe, and it was already good knowledge that was existing. And also, I hope that the European industry benefited from the existence of Copernicus also to increase their business and maybe some new companies to be created.
It was exactly my next point. We do the survey, and there we found that over these 5 years, revenues have grown from about 1.7 billion to 2.3 billion, which is a growth rate of 10% per annum, which is good. And from 572 companies in 2000 to 796 last year, and obviously the growth is continuing. The number of employees has also grown, so 11,600 to around 15,000. So, and a few years ago, we gave ourselves the task of trying to estimate how many people were involved in the sector. So not just in the commercial sector, but also in the public sector, in the academics, etc. And that led us to estimate 2019 there were 24,000 people working in the EO sector. If we scale that up to today, that would represent around 36,000, which is a significant sector. So we think that's it would be interesting to look at that again. So it's a significant industrial sector. So I think to address your point, yes, the industry has grown alongside Copernicus, and it has been a win-win for both sides. We touched on some of the ways in which the program has evolved to include the private sector. Maybe there's some other points that you want to make there. How do you see the industry engagement, and how do you think that can help in the future years?
Yes. No, I think that's so. As I said, industry as a key role. Indeed, it's all over the chain. So it's on the upstream construction of satellites, operation of the satellites, in the midstream area where actually all this data receive an added value transformation into some high-level services, and then the downstream market. So I think that industry, hopefully, in particular, let's say for the first and the second, it's something that we procure. So we have to kind of control into that. We start from user requirements and then we procure them. But we hope that there is a kind of an avalanche effect, that what we do for the upstream and the midstream creates some capacity for the downstream to go further in that direction. According to you, because I imagine that this evolution is also due to this aspect. We tried also to find ways to stimulate this downstream market. We had an initiative that is called Cassini at European level in order to finance the creation and the continuation of some companies. It was a help to do that, and we hope that some companies benefited out of that. As I said before, for the contributing missions, we try to find also models that are not just going to the usual very good suspects, but also to try to create new capacities with other entities. And indeed, one of the objectives of Copernicus or GMS was not just support to environment or support to security and so on. It's really also to support the European economy. So it's really to create an appropriate European environment. And this is confirmed also recently by several reports like the Draghi report or the Letta report that are also looking into the future and saying that it is important to go for the increased competitiveness of Europe in general, and among the sector space is recognized something that would need some support in this respect.
Yeah. So continue to look ahead. There's 6 expansion missions which are on the plans to be developed and launched in the next few years. Technologies are evolving. We hear artificial intelligence everywhere. Onboard processing is a trend which we think will increase. Indeed, the missions already been announced, I think will lead to something like a 10-fold increase in data volume. So there's going to need to be some rethinking about the way in which the data distribution and data access is organized. What do you see as being the major challenges over the next few years?
Yeah, I think that in the next few years, and we already see when we plan. So we are already planning what will be the next, and just the continuation of the program. I'm not speaking about new initiative, but just the continuation will have an increase of cost that is quite important, because if up to now we were on a scaling phase, so development in particular co-finance with the European Space Agency, we are getting more and more into an operational phase. And in, let's say, 5-10 years time, when the expansion missions will be launched, when we get a new crew split, will not be at the level of an average of 8-9 satellites like we were now, but we'll get to at least 10 more. I think we calculated that we will be at a cruise speed of around 16-18 satellites, with a tremendous increase of data. I don't think it will, I mean, the figure is not tenfold, but what I got is 400% increase, so 4 or 5 times more. But it's already a lot, and this it also costs. So we are actually, some of the cost of development now is becoming cost of operation, and this will be something good. But as we will also, when the Court of Auditors analyzed Copernicus, I think they found it very good, everything that was done in the thinking, in the planning, in the planification, in the development, and so on. The weak point was how the data were used and distributed. So how to make really that a valuable product. And there, so we started looking at things. So we look into better distribution systems. We have now the CDSC, that is a system for distribution. We have a wiki and so on. But sometimes there are so many portals, and we have to put some order into that and to be effective. And last but not least, we know that still today, those that are not really looking for European solution, actually they still prefer Google Earth, for example, because it's easier, they're used to that and so on. But there we get again into the fact that people prefer to stay in the comfort zone, not to change, to go in something new. But I think this is taking time, and I think also in that respect that we are getting in a better solution. So the use of the data, the distribution of the data in this is important, but also how this has to be improved. Digital solution, artificial intelligence, high performance computing, digital twins are also coming to the picture. How Earth observation can contribute to these digital twins. I think this is the future, and indeed, as everybody knows, if you think that you have a successful situation, a successful thing in your hand, it will not remain successful if you don't make it evolve with time. So we have also to think how this should be in 2, 3 or 4 years time, and we'll look very much into quantum and about artificial intelligence, as I said, in order to make progress in all that.
Yeah. So big challenges there. We've got Jean with us as well. I wanted just to because Copernicus was seen as the European contribution to GEO, which has been, GEO has been a strong advocate of the free and open data policy driver for it in the past. I was at the EuroGeo Forum this week, as with Jean. We had some really interesting presentations. I had a very good session around geo value. And EuroGeo provides a platform for bringing people together, for networking and fostering networking collaboration. Do you have a perspective on the future of that relationship between Copernicus and Geo? And I invite John also if you wish to comment. I didn't warn you at all.
So first of all, I think that Geo has this international forum. So it's very important that that Copernicus Earth observation, European Earth observation in general, is there. As I said, and I'm not saying that. I mean, everyone's recognizing that most probably when we speak about Earth observation, Copernicus is the best that we have at this moment in time. I have to say that we are working very well. I mean, we are different parts of the European Commission, but with Jean, we are working very well. I heard that, just speaking before this meeting, that the EuroGeo in Den Haag was very successful, more than 300 participants. And it's not Geo, it's EuroGeo. So it's the Euro side of that. So it's extremely, is amazing. But I think it's very important. I mean, personally, as working for Copernicus, I think that Geo is extremely important to create links, but at the same time to show to the non-Europeans what we do. Because I mean, speaking among us, what is Copernicus, sometimes it looks obvious, but actually Geo is a kind of a vitrine where you can be there, you can show things that you do and demonstrate. I mean, looking at from a distance, I think there have been a couple of, sorry to be so direct, there have been a couple of sessions or plenary of Geo where I think the European capacity has been a little bit sidelined. It was not the case this year when it happened in Rome, and I discussed with our friends and colleagues. I think Geo is a unique opportunity to show how, I'm not saying Copernicus, how Europe is good in Earth observation. And I think that we have really to use this unique opportunity of this global happening, if I may say, exactly to show that.
It's an international platform with 100. I'm not sure the current numbers. 112, 120, 117 countries involved. Yeah. Do you?
No, I support what Mauro
We can hear you, yeah, it's okay.
Because I think that we are just at the right time where there is a convergence of interest between the Geo community and the Copernicus community. We are all looking at increasing the uptake of the and the assets we have in Europe, not only the space program, but all the mechanism we have around the digital program, helping to build the infrastructure. We need to make use of those data. For example, Europe program, helping to make sure that we identify and we try to address the research gaps to make sure that the Copernicus service can still evolve and remain state of the art. So, and we see a lot of convergence as well between what has been done by the Roger Action, also, for example, and the new NCP program.
Yeah,
my neighbor can play a lot from the NCP. So yes, it's a good moment.
Yeah. I mean, Europe's strong in this, and it's an important time to show that strength. EuroGeo and Geo itself provides a platform for that exchange and for showing the European position. And given the sort of geostrategic context at the moment, this is more and more important, and we all feel it. How do you see the international context now influencing Copernicus?
So I think when we speak about international context, indeed, We have probably to make a difference between multilateral fora and when you think about that, I have in mind Geo, but I think we are cooperating quite well, and Europe is still the co-chairing of that, so we are well represented. And maybe the bilateral activities. I think, and I think there's one question I've seen also on the chat that is linked to what we're doing in that respect. We have for sure some different kinds of international cooperation. There are cases where we come mostly as a donor or someone that is in support. So what we do is with some countries, we really try to make our data better available to user, creating some hubs around the world. There's been one in Panama, in the Philippines, in Chile. It's really to facilitate. So the data is full, open, and free. Most of that, I'd say. But to facilitate the access, so it's meaning that there are hubs somewhere where people can plug in and to have a faster access to what we do. With other countries, indeed, with the big ones, US, Canada, Japan, Australia, and so on. We are having some bilateral discussions. They are not all the same. It's really depending on who is on the other side. We really like to cooperate with them because when we look into Earth observation, I think it's good to cooperate to have as much data as possible to share. So this is about the use of the data. Indeed, behind that, there is also kind of economic diplomacy. So to try to see how it's possible to facilitate also the possibility to have contracts and cooperation with other in other markets. So this is something that we are trying. Then we can go individually to one or the other country, and indeed, I think the aspects are different. So I don't know how far you want to go.
Well, we can continue. If people have questions, please put them into the chat. But just one more point I wanted to explore. In our last EOcafe, I had Susanna Masanova, your colleague, and we talked about the Space Act, space law, and we remarked in the EOcafe that it was an introduction of regulation in Europe, which I think broadly favourable, but at the same time, discussions with the US, the other one of the major power here, seem to be going in the opposite direction. And indeed, the day after that EOcafe, I saw an article in the paper saying exactly that the trend would be to deregulate it further. I know you've had discussions with the US. What's your perspective on this relationship?
So, first of all, the Space Act is a regulation proposal. So there was a document that has been put forward by the Commission. Now is discussed at the level of the Council and of the European Parliament. So indeed, they will analyze what is the real impact that the Space Act has in. Really to see what is the impact of the Space Act. Now, it might be changed, so things are analyzed deeply. It's true that I was in the US a little bit more than 1 month ago, and the US demonstrated a lot of interest into that. I think we discussed. It's true that we have a cooperation with many things. For example, we look how to better coordinate activities of Sentinel-2 with Landsat. This time, for obvious reasons, we couldn't speak about climate change, while on the other meetings we had, it was one of the topics we were discussing. But there was a lot of interest from the US side on this Space Act and how this would impact what they're doing. It's clear that the Space Act is looking at creating rule, at regulating. In principle, also at protecting, so the fact that in Europe, we will be using solutions that follow some rules. Now the question is how much this will cost, how much cost the rule, having the rule. And yeah, so all the discussion is about that. I think that I've seen some kind of I don't know if it's worry or perplexity from the side of the US, but they understood that if they wanted to compete in Europe, it would have been probably harder. I don't know on the other side if this will make also harder for European to compete outside. This is more for you and to analyze that. But I think that it was time at least to break this taboo, and we need to put that forward, this discussion forward. Now, what will be the final content of this regulation? We will see, but why we got into that? We got into that because I think our space area is overcrowded, so we have to look more to regulate how this is happening. We have also to protect our assets from cybersecurity things and so on. It's about resilience. So it's about a lot of elements that maybe were underestimated 10 years ago. But the more we advance, the more we get in overcrowding and problems of sustainability of the space as a common area. And we have war ongoing. We have many things where actually protecting and being resilient are becoming key factors for it's not just for the competitiveness of our capacities, really for the existence of that.
Absolutely. Everyone out there, please put any questions into the chat. I wanted just to get maybe a perspective from our side. With the EARSC board is meeting at this very moment in Frascati, but they were breaking to join the call, and I see Mark online. Mark, could I ask you maybe give a perspective of the last 5 years and what you see as being the key changes?
Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
First of all, good afternoon to Mauro, and thank you for joining this EOcafe. I think that obviously the first point which we can notice in the 5 years is significant growth of the sector. As said by Geoff, we are about in average more than 10% per year of business growth in this sector, which is quite amazing, to be honest. Another important change definitely is as said by Mauro, the fact that the applications of Earth observation, and most probably thanks to Copernicus assets, is now entering more and more in the definition of policies, in the verification of these policies, including as well for all the matters related to the climate adaptation actions, specifically in the regional sectors. So that's definitely positive. The positive side. On the negative side, I would say that there's still a lot to do on that. It's still, and we already discussed that. There is still significant effort to be done to convince that some policymakers, not only at European level, but as well at national and regional levels, I would say, that Earth observation can be a significant support for defining and monitoring the impacts of their policies. The solutions are there, but user awareness is not always at the right level. And just to complete as well on the gut feeling of the evolution, it's also obvious that some new technologies, which are now made possible by basically the computer powers, clearly, and the introduction of artificial intelligence in our domain is opening new, I would say, almost every day new applications. It's something which is definitely moving. So, in a nutshell, very good progress, but still a lot to be done. And on that, I think it's a common job to be done, both by the European Commission decision makers like you, and also the industrial partners. Now we have also our job to do here to make our application, meaning the application that's developed by the industry, more visible and more usable, I would say sometimes, for non-specialists, specifically in the at local and regional levels. That's my guess. Thank you.
Thanks, Bart. So we haven't talked at all about security and the question of security services. It's a delicate topic. I'm not talking about military. I'm talking about extension of civil security, but of course the question of dual use and the military side is always there as well. Any thoughts on the evolution of the security side?
Yes, I think that it's not a problem speaking about even defense. You know that the Directorate General from where I come from is DEFIS, so it's defense industry and space. For the first time in the new commission, there is a commissioner that is dedicated to defense and space. So this is now, so defense is getting higher level. There are many defense documents, communications, and so on that are prepared. So this is, I think, already that we entered completely into the Brussels jargon, and it's not anymore a problem to speak about that. And as all the rest, I think we are also Earth observation is looking into that already. I don't remember if it was 2 or 3 years ago in the space strategy for security and defense. The fact to have more Earth observation also in support of defense was raised. So it's defense in space and security and defense is and from space. So really how to protect our assets flying there, but also how to use them in order to be in support. So we are, and maybe I'm expanding a little bit more. I mean, for the future, we are already looking into the next multi-annual financial framework. So the money that we have today is planned until 2027, but we're already having discussion what would be budget, how much and how should be the budget in the period 2028-2035. Just mid of July, I think 16th of July, the Commission adopted some regulations about that, and in particular, what was called European Competitiveness Fund. I would like to underline the fact that space and defense were included in a European Competitiveness Fund, so it's meaning that they are part of the competitiveness strategy of Europe in that respect. And then we can also detail about the money that was proposed and so on, but only time allows. What I would like to mention is that when we look to the space part, in particular to the Earth observation part, there are 2 legs now. There's one leg that is the traditional Copernicus, and then there is another leg that is called the Earth Observation Governmental Service. This is totally new. It's a new proposal, a new idea to have something that is more in support of governmental use, that would be security and defense. Already today, we have security services like maritime surveillance, border surveillance, support to external action, and so on. But this would expand. It would go more and really supporting member states also in dealing with confidential information, geoanalysis and geointelligence and so on. Indeed, it's a new area. We have to be careful because we are entering a domain that has been usually up to now dominated rightly by the defense. And so we are trying to establish links also with the defense community, try to understand how we can best cooperate, and maybe also to have dual use solutions. So we have a solution that could be worth both for a civil use and for for a defense and for a defense one. So this EOGS thing is the novelty, I have to say, in the preparation of the future, because the rest, I would say, is mostly evolution. When you speak about technology, about digital, and so it's evolving what we have done. Here is really a new capacity, something new. Is practically, if I may do the example, is replicating what Galileo has with the GPS. So the GPS like of Galileo does not exist today in Copernicus. And so we are thinking about this governmental service that will not be part of Copernicus, but will be another leg of Earth observation. So we decided, instead of including a governmental service in Copernicus, that would have created a lot of issues with us. And then we should have had to review all the data policy, open and data free and so on. We need to think about two initiatives under the umbrella of Earth observation, Copernicus, and EOGS. There might be links because in some cases, the infrastructure, they support dual-use infrastructure can for both of them. So indeed, I think it's really the novelty there. And if I may, because I know that at a given moment in time, we'll have to stop. So the regulation has been put forward in July. The overall MFF is very ambitious. So a lot of money has been proposed. I think where we are happy is that from the side of space and defense, it really, the total amount includes what we have requested. So we put forward our request and so on. But the overall amount of the MFF is very huge. It's very big. Would it be the final amount that will be approved? I have my doubts about that because indeed it's a very big increase. So it's meaning that if the amount will be reduced, there will be choices to be made. And when I say to be reduced, it's because now this proposal is analyzed between the member states in the Council and the European Parliament. And then there can be a competition among different files. Yeah. So now I think is for also some communities like yours to make the case. Our job, as I'm not saying that it's ended, but I think the big part of our job was to make the proposal. Now, as we say, the Commission proposes and the Council and the European Parliament disposes. But actually, as we have proposed, it's now you that can eventually influence the different communities, what will be the trend of decisions. So there are for sure political drivers. Space is a must. I mean, it's very high in the agenda. Defense is very high in the agenda. Space somehow is quite linked to defense. But indeed, I think that the work for those that are really much involved to support your domains of interest, I think it would be very important.
I'm sure we'll be very active in that respect and be talking with you further as well. Going online, Volpart was also inquiring about the international context. A number of different points coming out. Volpart, do you want to come join us and express your points?
Absolutely, thank you, Geoff. I'm struggling currently, and I hope background noise isn't too bad. I'm coming in from Canada today on from a business trip here, and I'm joining in between two meetings from a cafe. So sorry about that, and it doesn't really support my camera. Mauro, thank you very much, first of all, for all the explanations that you gave on where Copernicus could be heading. And actually, you already almost answered several questions that I had posted here. Still, my main question would be, how does the changing geopolitical landscape, especially the new relationship between Europe and the US, how does this change the partnership that the Copernicus program is aiming at, or new partnerships with other countries? Like I am in Canada right now, and I get from across the EU community here looking for partners outside the US, because basically the US market broke off for them. So they are looking for new partners, and I also believe the expertise that these countries can bring in, whether it's Canada, whether it's Brazil. I'm looking at Copernicus Luck. Yeah, there's an initiative already, but also then Southeastern Asia, in Asian countries. Japan, you already mentioned. How does this partnership now is now supposed to evolve into new countries, into new bilaterals, maybe even into multilateral agreements that will also provide new opportunities for the European EO sector, especially the downstream sector. How do you see this evolve, and how do you see, again, the dual use aspect being evolving within this? Because a lot of countries, like Canada here, a lot of these countries are also looking for new partnerships in the dual use, or should I say defense and security area? That would be my main question.
Okay, so I think it's a very long and question. I will try to reply to some of the elements. Indeed, I think with, as I said before, with each country we might have a different approach. So with US, I think we continue to cooperate. In the end, I think it's mostly on land observations. We also cooperated until now also in co-building some satellites. I'm thinking about Sentinel 6, and we are also looking at what would be the possibility for the future. With Canada, I think we are also quite interested in relationship. I think it's mostly in the radar domain. But I have to say, with all these countries that you mentioned, we have also cooperation arrangements in place that are not binding. A cooperation arrangement that can look at different aspects, how we can cooperate in terms of exchange of satellite data. So, for example, with Canada, they were, for example, very helpful with us when the Sentinel-1 failed in order to compensate the lack of data to contribute with their radar constellation. We are working also to try to see how we can make available in situ capacities in a cross way, so that actually I can have access to ours and we can have access to theirs. And at the same time, we try to see if we can cooperate in specific domains, for example, in climate observation or in emergency solutions and so on. And there, we have seen that in some cases we can create some interest of those countries on see what we do in Europe, and in some cases. Also, we have seen that some of these countries have contacted our industry in order to understand how they generated the products for us, and maybe something similar could have been done in their in their support. So it's quite general. We tried really to make all this into the picture. We are speaking with Japan as well, where we are practically discussing the same thing. Brazil a little bit less, I have to say. So. This is very quickly a little bit what we are doing in.
Geoff, if you allow me, just very quickly to add to this, what I was looking for also is how do you see this evolving in the future in terms of new missions, not just CCMs, but also maybe joint missions, looking at Mexico, looking at Argentina. Looking at Brazil, there's a lot of competence. How could this contribute to the Copernicus program, the technological competence that these countries and the experts can offer to progress internationally at Copernicus?
Yes, we have to look into that. I have to say that the trend right now is to favor the European capacities. Indeed, if there might be some, it's not just for a matter to go European, but also to become a little bit self-sustainable, independent on that. And this now, I think this idea didn't come just now with the invasion of Ukraine. It appeared already quite logic at the moment of the COVID. So we spoke that 5 years ago we started with the COVID. Yeah. COVID, I think one very good lessons we learned with COVID is that when there is a crisis, it happens that we are alone. So everyone has to be sure that you have your own capacity. It helped so in the first moment of the crisis, we felt that it was important to have our production of vaccines and so on to be. Then when things evolved, it was easier to exchange things. But the very first moment of the crisis, we say it's very important to have the self-capacity to do that. And this was a lesson that was learned at that moment, really, to try to have this self-capacity. Indeed, if beyond that we can have something more that could bring us something in addition to that, I think we can look in those solutions. So it's not excluded to go into international cooperation, also in the creation of constellations, but then we have to look really into the different business models and so on. And I mean, it should be mostly for industry to look into that, and then we will see and we can analyze what is out there.
Yeah, but very much in partnership, because you know, in terms of the needs to be explored. We've reached the 1 hour mark. There were a couple of questions, or a couple of questionnaires, Bente and David, who put them into the chat. But what I would suggest is that we'll finish what we call sort of the formal part of the informal meeting, and then if you're able to stay a little bit longer, then we sort of throw the microphone open and throw the floor to anybody. So at this point, are there any last? We've covered quite a lot of ground here, so I think we've probably more or less exhausted most of the topics. But is there anything that you want to add finally?
It's, I think, to really underline two things that I already mentioned during the meeting today. First of all, I think that EARSC and all its constituency had an amazing role in what we have been doing insofar, and if we have a quite successful situation of Earth observation in Europe with Copernicus, but also beyond, is also thanks to the activity that EARSC and the members have been doing. And but this activity, I think, and this role, we count on that also for the future, because indeed, if we want that if you want that this sector is still remaining important, still increases as happened in the last years, as you mentioned, I think we have to work together. I mean, from our side, we are kind of policymakers. We try to make it happen, but in the end, things happen only if there is a support, not just a political one, but also support from industry, from users, and so on. So it should be a common endeavor if we want to continue with the success.
Okay, thank you very much for coming back and joining us again for our 100th meeting, your third meeting. It's been a pleasure having this discussion. The EOcafe will carry on. It's not finishing at 100. The next EOcafe will be in 13th of November. There we are. So please come and join us. The frequency of the EOcafes at the moment is reduced. We'll be looking at that for the new year. But there's a lot of work that goes into the background. Tanya's been sitting over to the side. You haven't seen her at all, but she's been instrumental in putting this together and keeping it running. So thank you very much, Tanya, for all your support and all your work. And I will close, as I say, the formal informal parts. We turn the recording off. Bente, David, if you wish to make your points, you come in first in the open chat.